Welcome to All Things Chiropractic.
Welcome to another episode of All Things Chiropractic. I'm Paul Andrews.
I'm Dr. Mark Davini. Welcome.
All right, so today we're going to be talking about something that seems to be really sparking a lot of interest in the chiropractic profession, especially when it comes to ka-ching, making some money. And what is that, Dr. Davini, we're talking about today?
Oh, it's the use and recommendation of peptides in your office.
Is that something that I take when I have gas or I have stomach acid issues or
No,
heartburn?
it's not this pretty pink and pinkish drink that's
Oh,
yeah. But
it's not
peptides are
Pepto. It's
actually
not Pepto.
no, they're the building blocks of protein.
Is it a mint? Like a peptide? Is that a mint? What is that?
I only wish that what you're saying was true.
Okay. So for those that, like myself, that aren't really intimately or familiar with peptides, doc, what the heck is that?
Well, they're amino acids. They're short chains of amino acids. They're part of every protein. Generally speaking, proteins carry many more amino acids, but when you're using peptide therapy, if we're going to call it that, you would be using shorter versions of that. And they act like as these messengers to cells, signaling the body to perform certain functions. And it's gained a lot of traction, especially among, we'll say, alternative healthcare professionals, because they're not drugs. I mean, peptides are naturally occurring substances. They may be synthesized, just like we have supplements that are synthesized. But for the most part, if we were to say, how do we know where these are in our everyday life right now, people might obviously be way more familiar with GLP-1 and insulin. Those are basically forms of peptide therapy that are FDA-approved peptide therapies and very, very common. But for the most part, they're just these messages to the cells and telling the cells to perform certain functions. They hopefully result in certain effects that most practitioners might be going for.
So when I think of when you said GLP-1, I'm thinking these peptide therapies are injectables. Is that
Yeah,
common?
it's a great question because I think it comes to the crux of some of what's going on, and I'm a little bit more serious during this podcast
Oh,
because I think
geez. You're making
yeah,
my job a lot harder now.
I
Oh,
know.
Mr. Serious. Okay.
Oh, but it's
All
just,
right.
sometimes I don't know what people go in there thinking. Okay, so yes, they can be they can be administered in 3 different ways. They can be topical, they can be oral supplementation, effects that we're used to, and they can be injected both subcutaneous and intravenously.
All right. Well, if we're talking about topical or oral, that sounds pretty generic, like any supplement or topical they might be selling now. Biofreeze is topical. Vitamin
Exactly.
D3 is oral. So what's the big deal there?
Well, I mean, for the most part, there's no issue with those types of applications because, for the most part, like you said, it's what we do. So, in a chiropractic office, you might have a bottle of this or a bottle of that. You might have a tube of this or a tube of that, and you might recommend them for certain, hopefully, certain effects. Um, that's not really where most seem to be going. When you look at an injectable and you say, I mean, when you look at a peptide the most effective way to administer a peptide to get the most dramatic effect would be to inject them into the body, either subcutaneous or intravenously, with intravenous being the most effective form. So if you think of all the things that peptides are out there, and everybody's claiming they, regulate that they can build muscle and tissue repair and sleep disorders, immune issues, hormone issues. All of these things are things that are being put out there that peptide therapy can help. And I'm not debating whether they do or they don't. The opinions are mixed on all of it. I guess I'm focusing more on the fact that chiropractors um, uh, we'll say zooming in a little bit too much on trying to find a way to become part of the injectable model.
Well, I've seen this in the beauty world in cosmetology, maybe a somewhat smaller amount in massage. But it's not about the philosophy. Well, it's frankly not much about the patient. It's about the income. It's
Exactly.
because injectables are very lucrative in
Right.
all kinds of areas. But when we're talking about injectables, now I'm saying to myself, okay, doc, number one, just the philosophical question: is injecting anything chiropractic?
Okay, so this is where I'll speak a little more personally. You're taking a substance, I won't necessarily use the word drug, but you're taking a substance that needs to be prescribed, that you cannot administer in most states, that you can't even sell in most states in an injectable form. And you're recommending it for a specific purpose, a condition, a symptom. I don't know, it's starting to sound awful like allopathic medicine to me.
So if you can't inject it, can you order it as a chiropractor?
Well, this is another part that's becoming a problem. And there's a lot of issues about the peptides. Are they even safe? Where do they come from? I mean, there's this whole discussion about, they're coming from China and they could be contaminated or whatever. So, all that discussion aside, that you really need to know what it is you're ordering and where you're getting it from. If you were to say use oral or topicals, but when it comes to where, how do you as a chiropractor get to know, number 1, can I recommend this? It'd be like you recommending, another restricted substance. So, your state board needs to come into play. You have to ask your state board, get an advisory opinion from your state board. Can I recommend injectable peptide therapy? And if the board says yes, then the good thing about that is that your malpractice will most likely cover you also, because malpractice is generally based on scope of practice, and scope of practice is determined by your state board. But what you shouldn't do, and I'll say absolutely shouldn't do, is trust that some company that's making some kind of arrangements, which we'll talk about in a minute, where all you have to do is send them the patient and they take care of everything. And once a month you get a check. um, you can't believe them, because they are trying to get you on board to recommend their product so that they can do all the charging and the billing and the collecting, and then you get your little piece of that. So you can't believe the people selling it, just like most things. You don't believe the people are selling it. If it's in your scope, only your board can tell you it's in your scope, not the people selling it. And if it's in your scope, then and you now have to check with your malpractice to make sure you're covered, because like everything, there's good and bad.
This reminds me of a real scenario. I was in a good friend of mine, doctor's office, used to work for him, and this guy came in cold and was trying to convince me that uh, the doctor should create this referral relationship with their company. And I forget honestly exactly what the heck they were selling. But basically it was, well, you would just refer the patients to us, then our our company, our doctors would decide if they're a candidate or not. And whether they go through or get this particular service, your doctor would get paid. And I said, how is that not a kickback? Well, it's because, whether they get the service or not, you'll get paid. So if they're not a good candidate, I said, well, how many of your, first of all, I said, I don't agree with that statement, but how many of your referrals end up not being candidates? He couldn't give me an answer to that. This debate went on for like a half an hour. And I realized at first he was defensive and was trying to convince me. And then after about 10 or 15 minutes, he was trying to get from me why he should continue to sell for this company, because he was starting to get nervous that what he was doing was wrong. And it was an interesting conversation because he left there really doubting whether or not he should continue to the next place.
Well, I mean, that's it exactly. Does it smell past the smell test? So, like I said, if you can't prescribe it, you can't administer it, you can't sell it, What part of this makes it okay to collect money as a result of it? Let's not even talk about the risks of this stuff, okay? Like everything, there are risks. I mean, we talked about the contamination issues that might come from bad sources, but you can have an immune response. You can have a hormone disruption. I mean, you can have a drug interaction. If you think you're going to inject something into the mainstream of someone, a main bloodstream of someone, and not have a potential drug interaction with other things they're taking, you're sadly mistaken. So now you need to know what other drugs they're on. Now you need to know what those drugs are for and what they do and what they don't do and what their potential side effects and interactions are. You're practicing medicine. That is exactly the practice of medicine. It is not wellness care. You're not recommending vitamin C, and if the body wants it, it'll use it. If the body doesn't want it, it won't use it, kind of thing. This is stuff that actually, we'll say, pushes an effect and that can interact just like herbs. Herbs can interact with other drugs. So you have to be very, very mindful of all these things and just passing it off to some company saying, "Oh, no, it's all on them. Don't worry about it. I'm just making a recommendation to this company." But if you're gonna get money back from it, you are now part of the liability loop here. You are part of it. And if you do any kind of regulation, control, or direction to that individual, you are definitely in the liability loop. So you have potential scope of practice issues. You have
Okay.
potential malpractice coverage issues. You have a potential of this just being part of your liability. When someone sues, they sue everybody. They don't leave you off because you're the chiropractor who just recommended it, but didn't have anything to do with it. You were the one as a clinician who decided this person might benefit from this service. So if you were to just send them out like it was an MRI, you don't get kickbacks from MRIs, right? So if you just
You
sent them
better
out,
not be.
you better not be. Yeah. If you sent them out for an MRI and and they pay what they pay, they bill who they bill, but it has nothing to do with you. Sure, fine. Stay away from it. If you are profiting from it, then I can guarantee you somewhere in that profit program process, there are questions. Again, not debating whether this stuff has clinical value or not. I'm talking about the application. We're compliance people. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you or stand here and tell you that this stuff doesn't help. Not at all. That's not the discussion. Our discussion is if you're going to put this in your office, what are the things you need to be concerned about? And I look at it from the perspective that there's a lot of unanswered questions here, and the answers that you'll get will come from the seller may likely not be totally accurate.
Yeah, but the peptide company said, we've got attorneys. We got thousands of attorneys across the country that have looked at this, and it's really not a problem.
For them, no. Yeah, because I can guarantee you they have done everything they can possibly do to hold themselves harmless. You are the clinician who's making this recommendation. So it is invasive. I know that's a word most people will probably disagree with me using here, but it's invasive in as much as it forces change to your body. It's not inviting change to your body. And that's the difference. When you inject something into the body, it has the power to push that change in a way that, say, just ingesting it and letting the body decide what it wants to do or not do with it. So it's just a different thing. So my question in my mind keeps saying, and I've read articles from other people who have said, "Oh, no, this is good for chiropractic," and I'm trying to find how. It's a therapy that isn't within our scope most of the time as far as the use of injectables go. We're forcing an effect or at least strongly pushing an effect on a condition, and it has a potential for other side effects, and they're listed side effects. I mean, they have, like I said, the drug interaction. They have, you can have injection site issues if you're the one that's dealing with that, headaches, fatigue, digestive problems. These are all things that can come from the use of these, and the more aggressive you use them, the more likely some of these things will happen, which means that you're the one on the front line dealing with the patient coming back saying, "I have a headache." Now you have to decide, is that headache from the use of this peptide therapy or is it a subluxation of C1? And that's where the
Let me ask you a
liability
bird's eye
comes
view question. Does this particular therapy treat subluxations?
in. It's not one of the listed it's not one of the listed, effects of peptides.
I'm just
Interesting,
curious.
right? Yeah, interesting. Oh, doesn't treat and as a chiropractor in Massachusetts, it has to affect the subluxation. Now, their answer will be, it builds muscle, it causes tissue repair, it causes, enhanced healing. All the components of a subluxation can be affected by the peptide. And so, again, how? If you use it orally or topically, no different than the vitamin. Like I said, you're inviting the body to use it. But when you inject it into a vein or sub-Q, you're telling the body to use it. It can't ignore it as much. And so it becomes a dramatic shift in the therapy itself. And when you read all that you read about it, nobody's going to disagree with me that the oral and topical versions of any peptide therapy is not even close in its effectiveness to the intravenous and sub-Q versions. So there are companies out there, like I say, just refer them to me. We'll take care of everything. Once a month, you'll get a check. And I can say right now, to add to the list of your malpractice carrier, your state board, maybe your own personal attorney, you better find out whether or not it violates federal kickback laws and federal self-referral laws, especially when you're dealing with the Medicare population. And as a compliance person, I'm saying, why do you want to get involved in this stuff? Yes, I get the money thing, but why
Well,
would you
that's it.
increase your liability to this level to perform a treatment that doesn't really even line up with chiropractic principles in its, we'll say, most purest form, if you want to go that way, and increases the possibility that somebody's going to sue you? I don't get it.
The money can be alluring, I think, for sure. I
Mhm.
mean, what if I guess one question, if I'm the chiropractor, I'd say, would I refer this if I wasn't getting any money for it?
And that's the perfect question right there, Paul.
Right?
If this stuff is so great, why don't I just send the patient out and get it? Just because it's good for them. It's effective. I've seen it help a lot of people. If you do that and that's how you use it in your office and you don't get money for it because it's not something you should get money for. You can't prescribe it, you can't sell it, and you can't administer it. Why are you getting paid for it? But if you take the money off the table, sure, not a problem, right? I send people for services that I can't perform all the time.
Well, I think about that because we even did an episode on when to refer out. So I say to myself, well, as a chiropractor, you're going to refer out if you need something diagnostically that you can't provide in your own office, MRI, CT, maybe even X-ray, right? Or
Exactly.
you're referring out because the patient needs something that's outside your scope.
Right.
Like those to me are the two probably the standards of referring out, right?
Right.
So referring somebody out, is it fitting one of those two models?
Right. Now, again, if you bypass everything and go on the wellness model of peptides, okay? Oh, it's anti-aging. It causes enhanced healing, anti-inflammatory, helps your immune system, help your hormone system. And you want to know something? I'm saying, how do you know that?
Hmm.
It hasn't been used this way very long. Look at GLP-1. Now, after all these months and years of people using it, they're now starting to say, whoa, whoa, wait a minute. We've got things here that are happening that are not all that great.
Oh
And
yeah.
that's what's going to happen here. All these, there's no such thing as the perfect supplement, the perfect drug, the perfect treatment, the perfect anything. We're going to be hearing about this stuff in the future. And if it's determined that the use of it was in any way, shape, or form a negligent application of your practice, you're on the hook. If you just recommended it pass the responsibility on to the person who is going to make the determination, and it has nothing to do with you receiving money or not. Like you said, just like referring out for something else that's out of your scope that you might think is beneficial for your patient.
Well, and then I think the other thing that can happen, which probably happens a lot with primary care nowadays because of advertising, is a patient comes in asking for it, wanting
Mhm.
it,
Great.
almost insisting on it, right? I'm sure that happens a lot. I bet the GLP-1 craze definitely happened there. But
Oh, yeah, all the
if you're
drugs on
telling me
TV.
GLP-1s are included in this peptide conversation as part of it, that clearly that intervention is forced, and that intervention can be a miracle for those that have struggled with obesity their whole lives. But
Mhm.
I bet there's people who are listening, just like me, who know somebody that had a very negative reaction to it. Because everybody, very many people I know are on it. And there's a lot of success stories as far as the goal of losing weight, but there's a lot of byproduct of that that isn't so successful, or there's been an issue.
Yeah, you're asking to engage your patients in an experiment, and they are the beta test sites. So now let's talk about consent.
Mhm.
What is the consent on this stuff? Nobody can tell you. It's not FDA approved. We don't know where you bought the drugs. Maybe they're contaminated, maybe they're not. But the whole idea here is there's no appropriate consent for this stuff to be through you because you are not the one in control of it. So even if you're using it as a wellness model type of approach, there's just not enough known about it. And even if we knew everything there was to know about it, and the conclusion was that this was something that needs to be injected into the body to be effective, it's not what we do. It's not what we do. I understand that the money issue, but, there's a lot of other supportive procedures out there that support the chiropractic principle. Decompression, shockwave, laser. These are all great ways to enhance your income, and they fall well within the scope of our practices. In one form or another, they've been used for many, many years with chiropractic adjustments, and this is not a supplement if you inject it. So if you hand them a bottle, hand them a tube, it's on your supplement shelf and you think it's helpful, great. But if you're recommending an injection, it's not a supplement anymore.
And going back to thinking about that conversation debate I had with that sales guy that showed up. At the end of the day, I said to him, "You're coming in wanting to tap into the patient base of this office. That is your motivation, right? Yes or no?"
Right,
To me, that was the one and only standard I needed for to know that there was something about this that was a problem.
right, right. If you're following the money and it's all about the money, then it's not what they're telling you it's about. Because they're going to walk in here and say, I am going to show you how you can make extra money in your office doing something you can't do. Here's the other thing too. So you have this whole system set up. Say you even found your own MD or NP or whatever that might do the injections for you and take the responsibility for it or whatever, and they work for you. Who knows, right? Now all of a sudden you got somebody that has that whole business in their hands. They could decide they don't need you and walk away tomorrow. Why do you want to get involved in a therapy that requires a license that most of us, and I overwhelming majority of us, don't have, like a medical degree of some kind? Why do we want to get involved and partner with somebody that isn't in our profession? As far as I'm not saying again, I'll always recommend stuff that everybody uses outside of what we do, but I'm talking about this becoming an integral part of your practice, mostly because it's profitable. Do something else that's profitable, that actually falls in line with the chiropractic principles.
My time on the cosmetology board as a regulator, what I saw was cosmetology, more aesthetic shops that they were doing it themselves, or they were bringing a fly by night nurse practitioner in to do injectables. Mostly it was Botox and things like that, but completely outside scope and all for cash. People didn't care, or they thought they were getting something that was, within their scope or in compliance, and it was not. But the tragedies of some of these outcomes with these injectables, site site, infections, nerve damage. It was crazy to me. And then the inspectors would come in and say, "Well, there's a bottle of Botox in your drawer." "Oh, that wasn't mine. That's the nurse practitioner who comes in, and I have nothing to do with it, except they're getting paid."
Yeah.
Or it's on their menu on their website.
There it
I mean,
is. Oh,
it was
I
dangerous
know.
stuff. It
It
was
is.
anything injectables, you're
This
running into
hasn't
all
been
kinds of
researched
things.
enough to say it's safe. It is, I mean, it's got most of them are under investigation by the FDA, and, we're not all total lovers of the FDA for sure. They have their games that they play, but my point is that this is new. It's trendy. I won't even say it's trending. It's trendy,
Mm.
and a lot of it, this one may be good, this one may be bad. You never know. I mean, just because GLP has a certain effect in a certain way doesn't necessarily mean that I'm gonna use a peptide just to make me, as an anti-inflammatory. So, when you start looking at these peptides and what they're used for, it is no different than looking at a drug and what it's used for. It's not how we treat the body. We treat the body by adjusting the spine and supportive procedures to help that in order for it to heal itself. We don't direct it through one version or another of a pharmaceutical. Because you might, oh, it's naturally occurring. Well, it may be naturally occurring in some, but it's mostly synthetically generated. And that the location that it's generated from may become the major issue.
That's a
I
scary thing.
I keep saying this to you over and over again. I don't even get the discussion here. Why is this even a discussion? And then you keep reminding me it's all about the money.
People are making
So
money.
take the
But
money off the table. We wouldn't even be doing this podcast.
the fact that it's, made in these compounding labs and could be anywhere, that's a scary thing too. You don't know what's in these bottles at all. Forget it. I mean, even if they're within the borders of the United States, we've seen how many compounding companies get
Oh,
zinged and because of their lack of,
oh,
hygiene basically.
yeah.
It's
So think of the process. You have to contact your board, find out if it's within scope. If it's within scope, it's within your liability. If it's not within scope, then you are liable for doing something that's not within scope, which means you may have license issues. Where's the good here? Where is the good? Take
because
away the money.
if something bad happens, they're gonna say, "Well, my chiropractor said I should get this."
Exactly.
Not I
You will
asked
be
for it.
named.
Not I asked for it. Not that I insisted. Not that I demanded it, but,
Yeah.
they thought it was a good idea.
Well, in the malpractice world, they have what's called the empty chair defense, and they never leave anybody out of the lawsuit for fear that everybody else will point to the empty chair
Yeah.
as the reason why it happened. So I don't care whether it's allowed by your state board or not, whether you have this doctor in a galaxy far, far away prescribing it and administering it. The bottom line comes out to be you will be on the liability loop.
No, thanks.
No,
I'm
thanks.
not interested in
So
that.
I know.
But
That's what
the
I'm
money
saying. Is
can be
I guess I
alluring.
felt a little more emotional about this than I thought because it's a discussion I don't even understand.
Money can be so alluring.
So
It's
alluring.
you gotta
That's
be
right.
careful. You've got to be
Exactly.
careful.
Yeah.
But anyway, we've
Anyway,
chewed a lot of peptides on this.
I'm gonna go have this is my whole glass of peptide right here.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Well, thanks again for listening to another episode of All Things Chiropractic. I'm Paul Andrews.
I'm Dr. Mark Davini. Thank you all.
Thanks for listening to All Things Chiropractic. We'd love to hear from you. Visit allthingschiropractic.com with comments, episode ideas, or questions. Or connect with us on Facebook and Instagram at All Things Chiropractic Podcast. Be sure to join Dr. Mark Davini and Paul Andrews next time for another episode of All Things Chiropractic.